Good morning, everyone. My name is Vigen, and I'm head of the CERN library. I came to CERN 14 years ago and had really only planned to stay for maximum 3 years because I thought it would become kind of a bit lonely, you know, to be a librarian among all those physicists. After 3 years, I had not only learned to speak French, which of course made it easier to stay in Geneva, but I have also learned to know our community. And that was such a challenging community that I even couldn't think about leaving CERN at that moment in time. And since then I have, as you have understood, stayed quite some more years. And I intend to stay more years because, as the librarian from Oregon said here to me at the coffee break this morning, it's so good to keep the happies happy. I like that one. So I got this kind of hot potato in my lap, you know, when our community wanted to see open access happen now. And that did not only mean at CERN, because as a few years back, CERN kind of read its own constitution better again and found out that it is really our mandate to provide an infrastructure to the entire community. So that was why the CERN management decided that when we go to do open access, we should not only do something which is good for CERN, we should do something which is best for the community at large, even if it would cost CERN maybe even more. That's not the issue. We are providing an infrastructure for the community. When we discuss open access, it's not only about business models. In parallel to this, we are running another project, which Travis Brooks from Slack is going to tell you more about this afternoon, about retrieval and archival of this material, because that is also a very, very important issue, which many, many librarians are worried about, that what happens if we go electronic only and it's open access, if a publisher disappears and all that. In a way, it should not be any different from before. Actually, it should be even better, because all the articles which will be published under the SCOAP model can be archived as many places as we would like to see. Certainly, we are going to archive these for eternity in the high energy physics repository, to be called Inspire. More to hear about that this afternoon. But we are also most interested to work with projects like LOX, Portico, and so on. Another thing which is kind of interesting is that, I mean, in a way it refers a bit to what Salvatore said, define open access, and we probably will get a lot of definitions. And there are actually different concepts of what it is and which priorities to be set. And there are even tensions within the open access community, believe it or not. And today, we are speaking about gold open access, which means publishing, open access publishing. And I guess that you have noticed my bright golden tie. If not, I hope that you should notice it by now. But not to irritate people in the other camp, I have also a green tie, which I will carry when I go to the repository conferences. Because the repositories are also very, very important, of course. I think that we are really living in a magic moment, because this is I think the first time in history where we can make this experiment possible. Technically, it's not a problem to make this open access experiment. What is more important is that we can now do it in a controlled way. And the scientists are ready to go, and the publishers are ready to go. Many of you come from big universities, and you manage large collections. And it's, of course, easy to think that, oh, gosh, we are discussing 6 to 10 titles, and it will imply a lot of hassle and problems to pursue this idea. Why should I do that when I have 10,000 journals in my portfolio, maybe even more? But what is so interesting with this thing is that by doing this, we will be able to convert an entire discipline to open access, and that has never happened before. And by running that experiment, certainly we are going to learn a lot more. Maybe we will learn lessons how to see that this can transport to other disciplines. I think it's particularly interesting to see that IEEE, which is not a core particle physics publisher, has got interested in this model and has expressed interest to work with SCOAP3. But how can we make it happen? It's not enough with publishers and scientists. We need the librarians. And you are the librarians. You have the key. So I think we should do as Salvatore says, stop talking and just reading. No, we have to get to action. I'm going to take you a little bit through my motivation. I've already given you a few ideas about that, and also a little bit about what has happened in the other countries around Europe. The institutional repositories are indeed important, as I said, and also, of course, subject repositories. But it's not enough. I mean, to fill repositories with manuscripts is not enough. We need to get to the peer-reviewed published material. And it is very, very, I would nearly say disturbing, you know, that we have to pay for journals which no one uses and then defend that vis-a-vis of a management that we have to purchase journals which no one uses. I mean, it's kind of absurd. I mean, we, being librarians or scientists, understand, of course, that we need to have these journals, because if we do not have those journals, we would not have peer review, and the entire scholarly communication system, which we have today, will collapse. And I think also that we, as librarians, we should really take opportunities to participate in reforming scholarly communication as this involves. And it's clear now, even Stephen Hardin says, that when you are fully green, it's time to go gold, and that's where we are in particle physics. Practical issues. Because, I mean, we are all squeezed on time, and we have all a lot of concerns. Remember the 3 circles Rick showed earlier this morning. If this creates so many problems, why should we go along? But I'm not so sure if this creates very many problems. Of course, you have to do this first initial calculation, estimation of how much you are spending today. But apart from that, SCOAP3 will not imply very much differences from a management point of view to what you are used to today. First of all, should you be worried if you commit to SCOAP3 today, based on your current expenditure, you commit X dollar, should you then be worried that next year we will come back to you and say, I'm so sorry, I mean, your scientists were so productive this year, so it's $2 this year. No, I mean, you have seen the graph showed by Salvatore that the total output is stable. If you go in and look country by country, year by year, you will see exactly the same result. So your contribution to SCOAP is absolutely going to be stable, so that's not a problem. Another thing, which is a part of our business model, is that we will have all partners to commit on a 3-year sliding window. This is, of course, a kind of a security valve, because if the model should, for some reason, prove not to work, publishers will have time to redesign their operation and get the journal going on under a different model. And I think all of you are very much used these days to operate with deals in the range of 3 years with publishers. So that should not bring anything new, neither. Breaking the packages, that is, of course, a big headache. And maybe one of the things which makes most librarians very, very hesitant to why they should go along with SCOAP3. How come one can do that? Because, I mean, shouldn't I then just end up by paying for SCOAP plus the current package? But this is not true. I mean, the publishers are expected to be fully reliable partners. It's absolutely in their interest to be reliable partners, and no packages are static. So if a publisher sell out, for example, today, a subscription journal or a number of subscription journals to another publisher and take them out of their package, it is clear that the price of the remaining package would have to be adjusted. And it's exactly the same thing for the SCOAP3 journals. When we take out journals, even if they are going to be published by the same publisher, of course the publisher has to then reduce the package price with a corresponding amount. And this is understood by all publishers we have been discussing with so far. So we have no signal that there is any publisher who is relevant for scope who is not going to do this. This slide you have seen before. So the second part of it is exactly the same as for the US. The first part of it is referring to the rest of the world, if you like. So what we are doing now is that in each country, we ask representatives from the country to identify how the scope collection can be collected together in their country. And then come to the scope consortium with a unique expression of interest. This is, as you have understood, not possible in the United States because it's such a vast country with very many different models for how research is paid for. So I'm going now to take you through a little bit to see what has happened in the different countries. And I can tell you that even if the United States is a very, very complex country to handle in this context, it is not so much more complex than other countries, I can tell you. First of all, you speak all the same language. That helps quite a lot. I mean, Germany, which Ralph is going to tell you about later, is I think, at least as complex as the United States, and they have made it. So let us have a look. As a good librarian, I couldn't resist, I had to do some classification. And I did some classification without using, I mean, the colors do not necessarily, it's not symbolic as such, if you like. I mean, it's just 3 different colors. So you see I have used red, green, and black. So all the red, which you will see in the next slide, are redirection of current library subscriptions. The same for the green, but then with involvement from funding agencies, and the black is more like ad hoc schemes, a little bit varying from country to country, yeah, you will see that, yeah. So here you see, if you group the green and the red together, it's more or less the whole thing. So it means that the current funding which we have got pledged for scope is mainly only redirection of library money. And this is very, very good because, I mean, the subscription model has been sustainable and libraries have demonstrated for decades and decades that they have been able to keep this funding stream going and support the journals. That makes us believe that this is also going to be the case when we move into the SCOAP3 model. Germany, I won't go in detail since Ralph is going to speak about that. In Italy and France, the funding agencies for particle physics are so big that they have so many libraries themselves that just by redirecting the subscription funds from those libraries, it was enough to pay for the entire country. In both those countries, it went quite easy, actually, to get scope through, and particularly in France, and I think that is kind of remarkable. It seems like for the French, it's kind of a direct line from the revolution to scope 3. At CERN, we have also carefully got the expression of interest signed, since our Director General is changing every 5th year, but I can assure you that the new Director General, who is going to start in a year from now and who will have a mandate of 5 years, is also very, very committed to this. So CERN is by definition committed, as I said, as well through its convention. So in addition to our own contribution, we are also going to offer what it costs to run the office of SCOAP3 without charging any overhead for that. In the Scandinavian countries, it's also quite interesting. You have to go to speak with royal librarians to make this happen. But royal librarians, they are very efficient, and they can make redirections without too much of a hassle. Many people think that Royal Librarians are so powerful they can just press the button. That is not true, because also their consortia are opt-in consortia. And I think that is very, very important, that actually all the consortia we have been discussing with so far have been opt-in consortia. So there is no consortium which just can decide on itself, you know, and go on. And I think that you should have in mind when you are getting back next week and you are thinking about what to do, how to act, how to proceed, how to achieve something, that if you are leading a consortium, it is actually possible to commit your consortium and put in as a condition simply that you will redirect the money provided that the members of your consortium is going to support this. That was exactly what happened in Greece, actually, not for a library consortium, but on the level of universities. It was one rector at the University of Patras. He was just so eager and liked the SCOAP3 model so much that as soon as he read about it, he asked to get an expression of interest, and he committed the entire country pending the approval of the rector conference. It took a few months before this approval came, but it came, and now they are working out a scheme how to redirect actually library money. And if they are not getting all the library money, the university rectors have ensured that the money is going to come directly from the universities. So it shows that one have to be able to take a risk, because it's not a risk. I mean, if you put it in as a condition, it is not a risk. In Hungary as well, it's the same as in France, that it's the Research Council which has libraries which then can redirect their money. And in Slovakia, you see the amount is not so big, so they were able to take it directly out of their research funds. I mean, something which researchers are not so happy about. I mean, researchers, they do not want to see that their research funds are going to shrink because of scope. That is also another point why it's very, very important that it comes out from libraries. By the way, looking at these figures, what countries have committed, you will very, very quickly see that your universities very often correspond to a medium-small European country. That is why we can afford to start running after single universities in the United States. And that's why it's very, very important that you get committed and get to act. There are also countries which still have not yet been able to commit, but we are very, very close. United Kingdom is a very, very important one. And just this very morning, I received an email from the Curl Scholarly Communication Group, which is a working group which regroups all research libraries in the country. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fred. At their meeting yesterday, this group had strongly endorsed SCOAP3 and is going to do whatever it can to get it through in the United Kingdom. We had exactly a similar meeting to this in London in the beginning of the month, and it was a very, very positive atmosphere. So I'm very optimistic that the UK librarians are going to get this pulled together, and we will see their letter of intent, expression of interest very soon. In Spain, there is a political will to sort this out at the ministerial level. Getting to ministerial levels is always a little bit risky. We were had the letter already at the table of the Polish minister, and then, of course, it happened that the government changed. And I mean, that is the risk. Librarians are stable. It's better to stay with them. So now we are stuck since this summer in Poland, and we are trying to deblock the situation again. In the Netherlands, there is an institute called NICEF, which is doing particle physics, which is very, very committed, ready to take half of the bill. And there we are actually just waiting for the librarians to get their act together. And I mean, we are pretty confident that is going to happen as well. In Belgium, that was really funny. They just called me up before we have even thought of starting pledging money at all, and they said, what would be the bill for Belgium? I just have to put it in my budget, you know, and I had to quickly start to compute. Afterwards, they have been a bit more slow, but I'm confident that it is going to come as well. And we are discussing in all other European countries. And as I said, it's not necessarily easy, you know, because I mean, many of the Eastern European countries have really emerging economies. Many of them do not necessarily even speak English so well, you know, when you get to the people you have to discuss with. So it's a good challenge, if you like. In Canada, we are discussing with the National Consortium of University Libraries, and we have also established contacts in Russia. There is another very, very important part of the world in this discussion, and that is, of course, Asia. Japan is a major contribution to particle physics with more than 7% of all the scientific output. And for a long, long time, I must confess and admit that we were really stuck in Japan. First, it started very well, then it ended up in a committee, and this committee has been really, I won't say that it has been sleeping, but it has taken a very, very long time, and they have been hesitant to discuss in an open way. This has now luckily changed. During the last 3 weeks, everything seemed to move differently, and we are now very, very good contact with officials who are going to bring this forward, and we are very optimistic that this is going to happen within maximum a few months. China is another big and important country, and it's not necessarily easy neither. I mean, remember that nor Salvatore nor me have an education as diplomats, you know, but we are about getting there, we feel. But I mean, you have to really learn to understand how the political systems are working in the various countries, how people think, and so on. But of course, we are taking advantage of already existing networks. The Max Planck Society has a network in China, which we have been taking advantage of, and also other colleagues are helping. So, I mean, if you have contacts in China, please do not hesitate to give us advice. Korea is another country where we have established contacts, but not really made a lot of progress so far. But I mean, as our office is not so big, we have to concentrate on country by country. I know we are in the United States this week. So, I don't know. I mean, I haven't checked the library conference schedule around here for this summer, but in Europe, at least, it's very much rethinking the library, you know, and Library 2.0 and so on. Whatever, I think that, however we rethink our role, whatever kind of Library 2.0 services we are going to implement and so on, I think what is important is that we stay close to our users, that we remain close to our community and serve them. Keep the happies happy. That is the mantra, you know. I mean, we have to be more than purchasing officers. And the scientists, they want open access, and they believe in open access, and I think they simply cannot understand how it is possible to put their scientific output behind tall barriers these days. I mean, I mean, just look at Google Scholar. Make a quick search at your own institution. Then you will see how many of your own faculty who either they do not understand that there is a copyright, or they just violate it because they just put it out there. And it's clear that is, I mean, no one would like to see it like that, because it's not good for the publishers, it's not good for the institution. We have to find a business model so that people really can share the material in the way they think it's natural that this material should be shared. So I think that's a unique opportunity which we should not let go. I mean, SCOAP shall not cost us more than the subscriptions cost us today. That's by construction, it cannot do that. Apart from that, you're going to do a simple calculation. That's a good weekend exercise. It should not imply additional efforts, and it responds to the demands of the community. And I think actually that SCOAP3 brings us towards a new era. Open access is not e-science, but the day when we are going to do e-science, we would need open access. So what should keep us back? Thank you.